Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I have to say that it's one of my favorite stories in the Gospels. This week we are looking at Matthew's Gospel and noting 5 times when the kindness of Jesus was on special display. We see it in stories where Jesus has compassion for people, and often we see that compassion when Jesus had every right to be focused on something else. But Jesus put those around him first. Today's story is found at the end of Matthew 20, and once again, let me get you rolling into the story by telling you what has come before this. Jesus and his disciples were in Jericho, and the mother of James and John comes to Jesus and asks him that they be given positions of glory next to Jesus. Well, that shows that they just don't get the kind of Messiah that Jesus is, or how he will suffer and die for us. Nevertheless, Jesus affirms that they will share in his suffering and be part of his eternal kingdom. But with a hint of what is to come, he says that the places on his right and left have already been spoken for. And later on we find those places are occupied by thieves as they hang on either side of Jesus. Then as they leave Jericho, 2 blind men call out to Jesus. "Lord, have mercy on us," they cry. And let's just pause for a moment and reflect on how at the very heart of mercy is kindness. There's a great story about a soldier in Napoleon's army who had been sentenced to death for a violation. The soldier's mother came to Napoleon and begged for mercy. Napoleon replied, "He doesn't deserve mercy." To which the mother answered, "If he deserved it, it wouldn't be mercy." Napoleon granted the man's life back to him. Mercy is kindness precisely because it is not deserved. So these 2 blind men cry out for mercy from Jesus, and Jesus has them brought to him. "Lord, let our eyes be opened," they plead. And then in verse 34 of chapter 20 it says, "Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes. Immediately they regained their sight and followed him." Moved with compassion. Once more, Jesus has kindness and mercy. Now, the reason this story is one of my favorites is because of what happens next. The very next story tells of Jesus entering Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. It's the week before his death, and you would think that Jesus, who knew what awaited him, would have quite a lot on his mind. You might think he'd be a bit distracted and filled with apprehension, or with trying to get his final words and message out. And yet, in the midst of that, he took time to be kind. And maybe that's one of the messages to us in this story. We should never be too busy to be kind. I'll say that again. We should never be too busy to be kind. Once more, we should never be too busy to be kind. The other reason I love this little story is the fact that it does happen right before Palm Sunday. Here we have a story of 2 men who can't see, but who perceive who Jesus really is. Right next to the story of Jesus entering Jerusalem and surrounded by people who can see, but who can't perceive Jesus at all. You know, a few moments ago I mentioned that you would think Jesus would be occupied with getting his final message out. Well, maybe he was. Maybe that message was kindness. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.